Welcome, one and all, to the Ferret Raccoon podcast, episode 221. I am your one and only host for this podcast, the Angry Raccoon, bringing you the first podcast of July 2023. And I don't know about you guys, but I've had a very, very long, sluggish last 2 weeks. It has just dragged on and on. Personally, for me, that's based on just my job and just how things have been progressing or not progressing for the most part. But besides the very, long nature since the previous podcast, I did manage to do a couple of things in that time. Firstly, I'm still playing Crash Team Rumble, which I'm actually enjoying a lot more than I previously was when I mentioned it on the last podcast. And I think that just comes down to the fact that I'm finally understanding the game. I'm enjoying it a lot more. The issues I have and that many people have with the game, it having a sort of lackluster start, imbalance issues, certain characters being a little bit too overpowered, they're still prevalent there, and I still do worry about this game's actual lifespan. But as of recently, we did finally get the first bit of content for this game, as it is an always online sort of service-ish game, that being the character Ripperoo, who is the blue kangaroo kleptomaniac. I don't know if that's the exact term, but he likes to blow things up. He likes to hurt himself and I guess others in return. He's been added as a character, and they did something kind of weird, and I don't know if this is just typical of these kinds of always online, modern day gaming kind of situations, where he was released under early access between the 6th and the 10th of July, in which you can find, let's say, his literal marbles across each map. And if you collect enough of them, you would unlock the character early, or you can just wait until the 20th of July. They weirdly just gave you an option in terms of how you want to, or a weird window frame for you to unlock this character, which is still very strange. What's even stranger is when the update finally happened, or the event, so to speak, it essentially limited you to 5 marbles per day, which I went and played the game, got the 5 marbles, and then was like, okay, well, I guess I'll have to wait until tomorrow to do so. So then I was playing the game and I saw there was another marble in the map, so I got it, and it counted towards the number count, and I was like, that's weird. I thought you said only 5 a day. Literally, the moment I got that marble, the game basically said, no, you need to update before you can play again. So I assumed that, I've obviously taken advantage of some kind of exploit or glitch. So I updated the game, and then I left it for a little while. I then came back to the game and saw that a ton of people had now unlocked Ripperoo. So I was even more confused, because I was like, but it's only 5 a day. I then proceeded throughout the evening to actually unlock the character, because I guess the whole 5 a day limit doesn't work, or doesn't matter. I really don't know what that is. I've taken video clips and screenshots of this just to kind of, have it there as archival evidence, but I don't know what's going on here. I mean, I'm happy I got the character, because he is a lot of fun to play. He's basically a cartoon character, how he can essentially run along on a exploding bomb, like a circular bomb, and like launch into people and all that kind of stuff. It's really well done. They've really captured his personality, or captured that, once again, cartoony aesthetic that the character always had. And yeah, he's an absolute terror online. But it's just really weird how they've managed this, and I hope that things are a lot clearer when they reveal, or I guess promote, early access, whatever, the next character being Dr. Engine. So yeah, just really weird. I thought I'd mention that just for the sake of mentioning it, and I guess because not too many people are actually playing the game, or maybe some people are generally interested in it at a fleeting glimpse, so to speak. The other thing I did / watched was I watched Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. I am one of 12 people who have seen this film in the world, because unfortunately this film has not financially done well in terms of its box office opening, which essentially means how much money the film made on the first day. It is currently DreamWorks' lowest performing film in that box office sense, which is quite sad to hear for the most part. My thoughts on the film exactly: is it worth seeing? If you're a massive fan of animation, I would say go see this film. If you have children who are over the age of 7, definitely go take them to see this film. It deserves a lot of support and a lot of love. Is it the greatest film of all time? No. It's not going to win any awards. You've kind of already seen this film. But there are some really great elements in this film. It is worth a watch this year. I personally did enjoy it. I liked it a lot. It does have its issues. One of the biggest issues I can see a lot of people having problems with is the fact that it's very talkative. The characters are constantly talking, and there are very rarely any moments of just silence and just moments where the character can just not be talking, essentially, which in other contexts, other shows, films, medias, that works. Here it doesn't quite, because it is kind of presented more as a children's film, or at least a film for younger children, as opposed to something like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which I would argue is a more universal film. Everyone and anyone can enjoy that film, understand it, and love it. With this film, it isn't necessarily trying to be for a niche audience, but I feel like it's probably going to garner or get the attention or the praise of people who are more in line with that. I did like it. It is a good film. I wish it does, well, not wish, I hope it does better in the coming days and weeks, as it doesn't really have too much competition in terms of animation, except for the one Netflix animated film, Nimona. I can't remember what, the one with the girl where she's a shapeshifter dragon. I completely forget its name, as well as Elemental, which is going to be releasing in this country very soon. But given that film's lackluster start and lackluster reviews, I doubt it's going to have that much competition for the most part. But I would recommend it if you have the time, especially since the holidays are coming up quite soon. Go take them to see it. They should hopefully enjoy it. It's got some great stuff there. I just hope it does well enough. I mean, it was made on a budget as well. Like, for an animated DreamWorks film, it had a budget of 70 million. I think it'd be really upsetting if it doesn't make at least more than that back. I feel like it will. I'm going to be positive with this one. As we do kind of have a bit of a positive episode to talk about, a more ladies-themed episode. And the first thing we've got to talk about, and it's a very short trailer, as it's essentially a promotion video for new Panty and Stocking, which is the long-awaited second season or continuation of one of Trigger Studios' most beloved anime series, being Panty and Stocking. And it's about time. Like, it's been way too long since we've seen or heard anything from this series or these characters. 13 years to be exact from August this year. This series has not been a thing. 13 years of a wait. And I hope this series starts right where the first ended, resolves it, then moves on like nothing happened, essentially. Then it's back to like epic, funny, wacky shenanigans. And I would say or argue that Panty and Stocking is a very universal, and I guess it's a very approachable anime series because it does take a lot of Western influence. It is essentially a Saturday morning cartoon, and I think a very, very good starting point if you want to get into anime, or if you're not into the more shonen, more serious fighting stuff and you just want something that's really, really funny and really silly. I would highly, highly, highly recommend Panty and Stocking, especially now that it's getting a second season. Definitely go and catch up on it because it is once again, a high recommendation on my end. I think almost anyone will enjoy it, essentially. And everyone, not necessarily everyone, I mean, to kind of go back to what this, I guess, opening or promotional video was referencing, the series ended on a very interesting, I guess, ending or cliffhanger, which had people speculating what the hell was going on. And I'm not going to spoil what happened because you need to get to that ending to understand. But I do like the concept that everyone, especially the villains, might be working together in this series. It's a concept I like when the villains team up with the good guys in order to fight a threat greater than them. The potential for these characters and their interactions and, all kinds of manner of crazy things that can happen with, established villains. And the villains I'm mentioning being Scanty and Knee Socks, who are the demon counterparts to our main characters, Panty and Stocking, who are fallen angels who have to essentially help Earth in order to get back to heaven, whereas Scanty and Knee Socks are essentially the reverse version where they just want to cause chaos for a evil purpose for the most part. Really fun stuff and very simple, easy to follow for the most part. Every episode is a whatever. It barely has a story. It's just kind of random, funny, crazy examples when one episode they're on a game show, they're in a casino, they're dealing with zombies, all kinds of craziness is happening. And it is interesting how it's dubbed new, which is once again very Western for an anime, because typically back in the 90s and 80s, you would usually say, the new adventures of the Ghostbusters or new episodes of this show. I do wonder if it is going to keep that title, and it's just going to be more random, once again, crazy, funny shenanigans. But it does make sense that it is Western inspired. They are kind of still sticking to their roots in that sort of sense, kind of that weird mishmash of Asian and Western, I guess, genres and values for the most part, which really makes the series stand out, because if you see the trailer and you see the characters, they're not typical anime characters, nor are they really Western-ish characters. They're a nice blend middle ground, which I really do like. Even just, for example, when you see the opening and you see both the characters, their hands, they're very squared-like, which is odd. You don't really draw people with square hands. But, one of the best parts about this series coming back is the fact that we might get figures and toys based on these characters, and hopefully re-releases. Like, I know a while ago there were Nendoroids, which are very collectible and posable Japanese figures of the two characters, which I think are out of stock, obviously, and there's a couple other things to do with them that just don't exist anymore. Hopefully with the hype, and hopefully the fact that Trigger, I think, does have a good relationship with the company that does make the Nendoroids, being a good, smart company, that we'll get a re-release, or maybe we'll finally get ones of Scanty and Nisox or some of the other characters. But I'm really, really excited for this series. I hope it's going to be good. I hope they're able to kind of capture or recapture what made the first season so just funny and just enjoyable. And once again, I cannot recommend this series enough. It's going to be a short episode because I've only got 2 more trailers to talk about, and they are all very, very small trailers. The next one is going to be the bizarrely titled Suicide Squad ISEKAI. This is the announcement trailer for a anime series based on the Suicide Squad, although we're only seeing Harley Quinn and Joker in this. I don't know how a Suicide Squad team is going to play into this, because they've only just promoted these 2 characters. And I mean, if it worked for Cyberpunk, it could work for them, and I think that's kind of the angle they're going with, is just that, essentially. I mean, this is clearly DC trying to use the global appeal of anime to get more people to care about their comics. It screams of desperation from a marketing context standpoint, which, for those of you who don't know, anime and manga is outselling comics like 3 times, simply put. DC Comics and Marvel, they're just not doing well financially. People would much rather read a manga story that has a start, middle, and end than a comic book series about, let's say, Superman, where he has, within 1 year, 8 different runs, and it's very hard to get into Superman or even understand what the hell's going on. Excuse me, but, I mean, it's not a bad premise, honestly. I will say that much. Joker and Harley Quinn in a fantasy world, but it's done to death. I mean, the isekai genre, which essentially takes characters from, let's say, more typically the real world, our world, and they get transported to a fictional fantasy alien world, and they have to deal with that, and usually the main character is able to bring said knowledge or skills that they know from this world into the isekai world, let's just say. So it is very much a slightly more Asian, newer take on the fish out of water story, with a lot more flexibility and creativity in that sense, where it isn't just, oh, I don't get what's going on, I do this, I do that, you know what I mean? And, it can work, but I mean, at this point, it might be a bit too late, because so many of these isekais have been done, and the concept has been done as well. I mean, even just the game Forspoken that came out recently, which people didn't like, that game is technically an isekai. And you have so many established isekai series, like That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, or Konosuba. There are so many, or, oh, I'm a spider, so what? Bizarre examples where a girl gets turned into a spider. I know there's even one where a girl, I can't remember if it's real or not. It may have just been a concept, but even then, I think a girl gets turned into an inanimate fridge. Stuff like that, which kind of go into that genre. So I do wonder if this series is even going to stand on its own legs. But, I mean, especially if they're not going to bring anything new to the table or fresh to the genre, which I'm not seeing right now for the most part. And I get that most people don't know what an isekai is, or even know that it's called that, or even watches anime. But if it's not good, and if it's not doing, like I said, anything special, it's not going to survive for the most part. Like, it could work as a slightly more extreme example, or a slightly more vastly different way of doing the worlds colliding example. Like, will the Joker and Harley Quinn feel at home in this world? Like, is this a murderous, crazy, lawless world, or are they going to be kind of seen as outcasts? Are they going to be seen as, like, heroes or villains? All that stuff is quite interesting, how both Harley Quinn and Joker in this world is going to react to these, people, mad people, whatever you want to call them. They might not even be considered mad in this world, to some extent. Like, but to look at the aesthetical stuff of it, the animation is pretty smooth with, like, that slight unique Western meets Asian style. Harley Quinn, surprisingly enough, translates really well to anime form. Like, they've struck a really good balance with her design. I'm not feeling the Joker's design. I really don't understand what DC's or people's obsession is with trying to make the Joker young and attractive. Like, based on what the character represents, it's a very bad message that they keep promoting. Like, the reason why the film Joker did so well, even though it was very safe and base level, was that it kind of exemplified the problems with the world and kind of what the Joker does and kind of is or represents for the most part. It's, a very obvious analogy for mental health, or there not being enough support or help for people who have mental health and what it can lead a person to do or lead a society to go down a certain route. When you make him an attractive pretty boy who is meant to be adored and he's the bad boy kind of character, that doesn't set a good precedence for someone who has mental problems. It's very, very concerning. I really don't like that. But the fact that it's called an isekai still bothers me. Like, you couldn't afford a better name for this series? Like, I mean, just call it like Harley Quinn and Joker, or In Another World, or Worlds Collide, or something a little bit more interesting than just isekai, because I doubt most people can even say that word or even know what it is. Once again, it comes off as very base level, like you've done little to nothing to do anything interesting. You've just, you know what I mean? That's like calling your new anime that has action and fighting, just simply calling it Battle, or, Fantasy Time. If it's not, especially if you're not going to make it a literal parody of the fantasy genre for the most part. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't get it. Like, although the very idea of DC once again trying to be down with the kids makes me cringe, the production looks great and it has potential to be something really fun and special. Like, it could be good because it's not necessarily Warner Brothers, the Western side of it doing it. It's more, I think it is literally Warner Brothers Japan and another animation studio whose name I can't remember right now doing it. So hopefully none of the stink from Warner Brothers will be on this. Last trailer we have, another one, and also featuring or centering around ladies, is going to be Drive Away Dolls, which is a very interesting trailer for a film. Like, this actually looks like a lot of fun for the most part. Like, they've certainly taken inspiration from Quentin Tarantino, mainly Pulp Fiction, as there are so many direct comparisons from the opening with the briefcase, or more accurately, the characters in this film opening a briefcase to see something in a bar or a diner setting, the Men in Black kind of like hunting down the characters, and there's so many other references which I don't want to say to Pulp Fiction just in case anyone hasn't seen it, and they can be considered a spoiler for the most part. You do have to wonder how much of this is intentional. Like, is it just trying to be its own Pulp Fiction? But the base premise kind of follows like these two girls who I guess decide to go on a bit of a road trip, kind of get away from their current lives. I believe they are lovers in this, so there is hopefully a nice romantic element there. And they kind of come across a briefcase, and they're kind of pursued by, I guess, drug lords or whoever to get this briefcase back, and then wacky shenanigans once again ensue. I mean, this film feels old in a good way, possibly how it's filled with like visible grain, or because it's just a simple to easy follow film. And that's something that's really missing in Hollywood nowadays. And I think that's kind of more the Marvel effect, where you have to do so much homework to watch one Marvel film, whereas so many films being released today are getting a lot of praise for simply just being a story that is, meant to be entertaining or interesting in that sense. So I give this film props once again. Like, it has personality, from its like deadpan writing to its like quirky camera movements, once again kind of referencing how Quentin Tarantino would film something. Like, it's not taking itself seriously, and that's great. And it's rare to see, once again, nowadays, like something that just kind of just does its own thing for the most part. And, the cast is pretty believable and likable, which is key in these kinds of films. You need to have a strong cast with something like this. You cannot, a single actor cannot miss the mark. And luckily, everyone kind of fits the role and kind of, seems great. I mean, people like Matt Damon just randomly is going to be cameoing in it, which is interesting, surprising that they got someone like him in it. And I love the use of purples and blues for the night scenes. Like, they really stand out against the film's intentionally bland looking day scenes, which, is purposeful given their mundane lives and the excitement of them being on the road and being here, there, and everywhere, and that kind of stuff. And I mean, I have my fingers crossed this one is going to be good. It looks like it has a lot of potential. People seem to be quite interested in it for the most part. So yeah, hopefully this will be another good one. But that's pretty much going to be the podcast for the most part. Like I said, it is a very short one, but we do have the video of the episode, which is going to be by Little Simz with Gorilla, who is a fantastic British rapper. This is the song of her last album, which I think is called No Thank You Something. Go listen to that album, go listen to her. Fantastic video with lots of really great, just odd, striking visuals, as Little Simz essentially is just hitting you with bars and lyrical flows. It's a very simple track, but it just kind of goes to show that she doesn't really need the most amazing, crazy production to just kind of be hitting you with not necessarily facts, but just real good wordplay, real good rhyming, a real showcase of skill. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be the podcast. Like I said, it's going to be a short one because there just generally wasn't much to talk about or anything that was that interesting. And I think these three things are way more interesting than some of the trife that was presented over the last 2 weeks. And also, it's nice to kind of have a shorter episode compared to the previous one, which was quite long. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. I'd like to thank you for listening to the podcast and making it this far. Subscribing always helps. It's always nice to kind of see the audience grow. And yeah, I guess there isn't anything else to say other than I was the Angry Raccoon, and I will see you on the next podcast.